Hello, everybody, and welcome to the inaugural episode of the American Monarch Radio. I am your host, the Catholic Esquire. Why do we have this radio show? Before we dive into any topics whatsoever, I suppose that's the first question we need to answer. The reality of the issue is, my friends, is that America is very sick right now. There's many, many problems. It's cultural, it's economic, it's political. And sadly, most of us feel these things are out of our control. You'll notice in typical American life, even people who consider themselves conservative Americans, they act and feel like they're under the gun, so to speak. They're very concerned about losing their jobs because of what they think. They're very concerned about losing their jobs because of the impending obvious economic collapse. They're worried about the futures of their family, their children, their grandchildren, because they see the trajectory that this country is on. And quite frankly, they're not wrong. Now, this is the case for traditional Catholics, Novus Ordo Catholics, Protestants, even atheists. Everybody can sense there's something going on and there's something wrong in this country right now. The problem is that most people cannot identify what that problem is. They sense something is out of whack. They sense something that is weighing them down. They feel hopeless and out of control. Certainly, at least as of today, the amenities, the consumer items, the entertainment is still available in the United States. People tend to take comfort in that. It's a lot easier to tell your boss you'll just do whatever he wants you to do for the 8 hours you're at your wage slave job, whether you earn a middle class salary or you're working at McDonald's. Either way, you do what you have to do to get by through the day. You come home, you turn on the television, you watch your sports game, you watch your movies, you watch your Netflix. It helps you escape the reality of what's happening around you. Interestingly, this all fell apart beginning in 2020 because what happened then is this oppression that everybody can feel but cannot name became concrete. At that point in 2020, people were told to stay inside, not go to church, wear a face mask, abandon your family, your mothers, your elderly parents, your sick children in the hospitals. Abandon them. Let them die, if need be, alone. And people did it. They were told they could not go to church because church was not essential. At the liquor stores, the drug stores, the pot stores were all open. Those who called themselves Christian, especially Catholics in the mainstream Catholic Church, they went along with it. They adopted what the mainstream media told them, what their pagan neighbors told them. They said you were not a charitable person if you did not wear a mask and abandon your parents in the hospital to die alone. They said you were not charitable if you showed up to Mass, the sacrifice of the Holy Mass, to receive Holy Communion and the sacraments. You were better off not doing that out of charity and love. Can you imagine, my friends, how backwards and twisted and evil the world is when we've gotten to this point? And yet that's the reality of what happened. I myself was attacked in grocery stores by crazy lesbian mask-wearing psychopath who threw a card at me because I wasn't wearing a mask while I was waiting outside of a grocery store because they would only let a certain amount of people in at one time to buy food. I was told that I could not receive Holy Communion on the tongue anymore, and I had to receive it in the hand, if at all, because the local bishop said so. Masses were shut down because the local government bureaucrat told the church to do it. This is the reality of what was happening. Now, I bring all of this up, this 2020 stuff, to tell you that that was a concrete example of this spiritual warfare coming to real life, coming to terms in tangible ways that the average American could actually see it. Prior to that time, a lot of it was not obvious necessarily. It was there for those who've been talking about these issues for many years, and there are some, especially traditional Catholics, could see that the world was collapsing all around them. Everything was infiltrated. Entertainment was infiltrated. Education, politics, your own families. Everybody could see the modern world infiltrating and poisoning society. And part of the reason it wasn't obvious is because it happened so gradually, little by little. And how many people went along with it? Almost everybody. Almost everybody is affected by this poison. So why is it necessary to have a radio show like this? It's internet radio, really. For right now, we're going to stay on recorded episodes, but I'm hoping one day to perhaps have live episodes if this takes off. But I think there's a real need for it, and I think there's going to be a real interest for it. Because what I'm going to present in this show is a way of living, a worldview, and ideas that, while very old, ancient, time-tested, and traditional, have become almost unknown in today's world. And that's because you're not going to hear these ideas on the Glenn Beck Show. You're not going to hear it on the Ben Shapiro Show. You're not going to hear it at your local Novus Ordo Catholic parish homily. You're not going to read it in any of those Novus Ordo Catholic books. You're certainly not going to hear it in Protestant churches. You're really not going to hear it anywhere else, and certainly not in mainstream culture or media. And that's because what I'm going to talk about on this show is a return of authentic Western Christendom. That's right, real Christendom. Some of you may be listening to this and saying, well, wait a second, I'm a Christian. I've always been a Christian. I believe in Christianity. America is a Christian country. This isn't new. This isn't anything different than what the modern conservatives and Republican Party are fighting for. But I'm going to tell you that's incorrect. That's untrue. I understand a lot of people believe that. But if I just claim to be a Christian, that doesn't make me a Christian. If I say America was founded under God because it was in the Declaration of Independence, that doesn't make it a reality. What you have to do is look to see what the facts are, what actually was happening, what actually the founding fathers believed, what actually was their revolutionary ideas, and where did they come from, who taught them, and where did they originate from, and how, if at all, does that square with the teachings of the church founded by Jesus Christ. And I'm talking about the authentic Roman Catholic Church. These are things people don't want to hear. You may talk to Catholics today and say, oh, well, I'm Catholic, and so of course I believe these things. The problem is that the modern Catholic Church has also been infiltrated. They've been infiltrated by liberal modernist heretics, at least the hierarchy. This plays out in the insanity that comes out of the Vatican every single day today. You see it with Francis, but even under valid and legitimate popes, such as John Paul II, Benedict XVI, men who many Catholics would consider conservative popes, and yet on so many times and so many occasions, they taught the modernist liberal agenda over and over again. And it just gets absorbed into our worldview, so much to the point where we don't even know as Catholics that when we go along and accept some of these American so-called ideals, we're actually rejecting the social kingship of Christ. Now, again, I don't want to go too far off tangent here. This is just an opening introductory episode. But I want to give you a flavor of what this is going to be about. Because what I'm interested in is restoring authentic Western Christendom. A Christendom that did exist at one time in Europe, throughout most of Europe, and has since been poisoned to the point where it's basically gone. We can still know what Christendom was, what it stood for, and how it operated. The good news is some books, not a lot, but there are some books out there that talk about it. And we have history as our example. But this requires us to re-educate ourselves again, because these are things that were not learned in our elementary schools, even our Catholic elementary schools. It just wasn't. We were taught the same American religious idol stories our public school kids were taught. And it's completely not Catholic, my friends. It's completely divorced from the truth. And we sit here and wonder why our nation is falling apart today. Certainly it's because of the progressive left. But when you have a conservative right that accepts the poisonous pills that liberalism delivers up, nothing's going to change. It's only going to get worse and worse and worse. And isn't that what happened? Isn't that what's been happening in the last 50 years? Especially since the Second Vatican Council. When the church, at least those in the hierarchy, accepted on a formal basis the liberal modernist agenda. Now, I know many of you are having questions in your head right now, like, how can this be? You're crazy. What are you talking about? And I understand I have to prove my point and prove my case and give you the details on this. And I intend to do that. And I'm going to do it in a very detailed and systematic way as best I can. It's important to cover political philosophy. It's important to cover some theology. I'm not a theologian. I'm a lawyer by trade. I have background in constitutional law and history. But I understand I have to prove my point, and we have to see it. And others have talked about this. This is everything I'm going to present to you is not new. Others have talked about it. I'll certainly give references when I can. An effort to show you that there is a different way. It's not the way of the Republicans. It's not the way of the Democrats. It's the way of Christ. And Christ, his kingship is not something that's just up in the sky and you don't need to worry about it until after you die. No, no, no. There very much is such thing as a social kingship of Christ. And when we talk about the social kingship of Christ, we're talking about Christian principles being put into place in modern civil affairs, political, economic, social. cultural, all of it. But you have to know what those principles are. And they're not being taught today. They're certainly not being taught in modern culture, but they're not even really being taught in modern Catholic parishes or books or by popular social media types. Sadly, a lot of the time, it's the opposite. They teach you the modernist liberal agenda. And that just goes to show you how much that these ideas, these poisonous ideas, have infiltrated every aspect of the church, every aspect of our culture, and it's destroying the fundamental units of society, especially the family and faith and our traditions that until the 20th century have been handed down for centuries upon centuries upon centuries. And yes, during that time they have developed organically, not forced upon anybody by some diktat from the Vatican or anybody else. Our traditions have developed organically through time-tested faith and action among Catholics as different circumstances occur and that God is allowed to test Christians, to develop them, to help them become holy. It's part of living. It's part of life. And yet these ideas, along with this process of becoming more holy and becoming more human and coming to know God through our political, economic, and cultural structures, has now disappeared. It's been replaced with a false lie. What is the lie? The lie is that all authority comes from mankind, that we can achieve perfect happiness without suffering through our own unaided human reason, through science, through our own efforts without the aid of God. We reject his providence, we reject his moral teachings, we reject the Ten Commandments. And this is not just the Democrats, this is not just the progressive left, it absolutely is what I call the conservative Republican type, the American conservative. There isn't a day that goes by on social media I don't see very well-known and popular conservative figures rejecting various moral teachings, subscribing to the libertarian notion of you just be you and I'll be me and I can define what the world around me is going to be. That is a lie from Satan. That is a lie from hell. And these people are supposed to be on our side. It's never going to work. And this is why, no matter how much you vote for the right guy, no matter how much you think that voting Republican or being a conservative or, defending the idea of one nation under God, under American political system that was founded by a bunch of anti-Catholic Masons, if you think that that's the way that we're going to fix the problems today and try to square that somehow with the teachings of the truth and the Catholic Church that date back to the time of Christ, I'm sorry, but you are sadly mistaken. Now, I don't blame anybody because I was there at one time. 10 years ago, I too was a liberty-loving, Tea Party-attending Republican who hit the streets trying to get Mitt Romney elected because I knew what a bad guy Barack Obama was. Well, yeah, Barack Obama was a bad guy. The part I didn't really get was that so was Mitt Romney, just in a different way. And so were most of the people at the top of the Republican Party. I went along with the game. I tried to play the political system that was handed to me. This idea that we can all vote. The power is from the people, and if we just work hard enough, we can get the right people elected and things will start to change. It was a lie, my friends. It's a lie. That is a lie that the system teaches all of us. And it doesn't matter if you call yourself conservative or progressive. That is a lie. That is a lie because it is not consistent with what the truth of the Catholic Church is, the church of who, the truth of who God is, and it rejects the notion of Christ's incarnation, the divine becoming flesh, and his sacrifice at Calvary as satisfaction for our sins against the Almighty God. The modern world rejects all of these ideas. They don't understand them. Sadly, many people don't even know what I'm talking about if I talked about those things. What are you talking about? Christ died as a sacrifice. They have no idea. They don't even know what Christmas is, other than the big, fat, jolly elf that comes around and gives me presents. You see how this evil liberalism works? They dumb down the faith. They make a joke of it. And there's a real reason behind it, my friends, is because they don't want the public to know about it. Well, I hope to change some of that. With this show, I hope to talk about what is tradition, what is Western Christendom, how does that actually work? How can the church and the secular authorities work together to achieve the common good? And what are those evil systems, those evil ideas and poisons that have infiltrated the world since at least the Protestant revolt of the 1500s? It's certainly been on automatic pilot since then. What are those ideas that are so poisonous? Why are they so bad? And how does it affect our world? We have to talk about these things. Otherwise, you don't realize it. So my goal with this radio show is to talk about all those issues. I intend to talk about a wide array of issues and hopefully ask others to join me, invite on guests. But it's important that you share these videos as well. If you like what you hear, even if you don't understand all of it, even if you think, I don't know if I can sign on to this yet, keep listening. Because it took me a while to figure this all out. Trust me. Like I told you, I was a Tea Party Republican. I was a liberty-loving, full-blooded American who thought America could do no wrong and the rest of the world was garbage, including the evil King George from England in the Dark Middle Ages. I bought into all of that. But it was all mythology. It was a lie. What was really happening throughout this time is that those who are enemies of Christ were using our public systems of governance, the cultural authorities, and destroying those associations of Christians that actually made the world work, turned them against each other, and recreated false versions of what used to exist naturally so that they could be controlled. This isn't conspiracy theory. I mean, this is easy to see just from facts of history. The problem is that you're looking at the facts of history from the wrong angle. I don't really intend to present any historical facts you probably don't know already. I'm just going to present them in a different way from a different angle that's going to open your mind and your eyes, and it's going to red pill you. If you don't know what I mean by red pill, Google the movie Matrix and read about that. But I was red pilled, and I'm hoping to red pill you if you haven't either. I just ask for your time and to give me a chance with an open mind. Because I know you, just like me, got tired of this two-party Democrat Republican, I'm either progressive or conservative system that I found myself and my family locked into with no way out. I too am tired of this Western liberalism that governs every aspect of our lives, down to our meaningless, boring jobs where we work an ridiculous number of hours a day just to pay off massive, massive amounts of debts, just to keep the consumer items coming in that we don't even produce in America, that come from crazy places across the world that have nothing to do with our values. All because of what? And there's no way, at least seemingly, to get out of it. I think there is ways to get out of this. I think there are avenues that we can explore, but it's going to require a change of worldview to get out of this left-right paradigm, red-blue, conservative, aggressive lie. They want you to think that's the entire world, just like the movie The Matrix. They want you to believe that's the entire world and there is no getting out of it. But in fact, there is another reality beyond that. It's the reality of Christ, the reality that Christ wanted us to have, and at one point in time we did have. Not without problems, of course, because we're all human beings. We were human beings 1,000 years ago in the Middle Ages, too. There's always going to be sinful man, and we have to deal with that. But the process of how to deal with that sin in the world is very different. And at one point in time, we did have the right way to look at it. And I'm hoping to show you what that was. And it was only after the Protestant Revolt, the Enlightenment, and the revolutions of the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries that really destroyed what we once had, destroying lives of the many to benefit the few. It doesn't have to be that way, and God doesn't want it to be that way. For our common good and for the salvation of our eternal souls, there is a different way, and I hope you'll listen as I explore these ideas and learn with you as we go on this venture. If you find this video useful, please share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel, and check out the AmericanVonday.org website. We provide written articles, other history podcasts, more academic in nature than these radio commentaries. But regardless, it'll give you information you may not have ever heard before, or at least if it represents information you once knew in a different light. An effort to open your eyes, your mind, remove the blindfold, and give you that red pill. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. We'll talk to you next time. Have a great day.